You know, I was at the airport a few months ago, and I witnessed something that absolutely fascinated me. There were two flights that got delayed. Same airline, same destination, same delay of 3 hours. But what was interesting was not the delay itself, but the reactions of two passengers I happened to observe. The first passenger, let's call him Mr. A, was furious. The moment the delay was announced, he stormed up to the counter. His face was red, his voice was loud. This is unacceptable. Do you know how important I am? Do you know how many meetings I'm going to miss? This airline is terrible. I'm never flying with you again. He spent the next 3 hours pacing, complaining to anyone who would listen, making angry phone calls, posting negative reviews online. He was completely consumed by his anger and frustration. Then there was another passenger, let's call him Mr. B. When the delay was announced, I saw him take a deep breath. He walked up to the same counter, smiled at the staff member, and said, I understand these things happen. Is there anything I can do to help make the situation easier for you? The staff member, who had been dealing with angry passengers all morning, was so surprised by his kindness that she actually teared up. Mr. B then went to a quiet corner, took out his laptop, and used those 3 hours productively. He caught up on emails, made some calls, even helped an elderly passenger who was confused about the delay, and when the flight finally boarded, he smiled and thanked the crew for getting them there safely. Now here's the fascinating part. Both these men experienced the exact same external circumstance. Same delay, same inconvenience, same situation, but their experiences couldn't have been more different. Mr. A spent 3 hours in misery, created stress for himself and everyone around him, and boarded the flight exhausted and angry. Mr. B spent 3 hours in peace, made someone's difficult day a little better, accomplished some work, and boarded the flight relaxed and content. What made the difference? Not the situation, not the delay, not the airline, not the circumstances. The difference was attitude. Mr. A had an attitude of entitlement, blame, and victimhood. Mr. B had an attitude of acceptance, kindness, and resourcefulness. And that attitude, that internal orientation toward life, determined their entire experience. I've thought about that airport scene many times since then, because it's a perfect microcosm of life itself. Every single day we encounter situations, some pleasant, some unpleasant, some expected, some unexpected, some fair, some unfair, and in every single one of those situations we have a choice, not a choice about the situation itself, but a choice about our attitude toward it. And here's what I've discovered through years of traveling the world, speaking to thousands of people, observing human behavior, and working on myself. Attitude is not just important. It's not just helpful. It's not just a nice quality to have. Attitude is everything. It determines the quality of your life more than your circumstances. It influences your relationships more than your communication skills. It impacts your success more than your abilities. It shapes your happiness more than your achievements. And yet, most people go through their entire lives without ever really understanding what attitude is, where it comes from, how it works, and most importantly, how to cultivate a positive attitude that serves them. Today, I want to take you on a journey of understanding, a journey that will help you see attitude not as some vague concept, but as a powerful tool you can consciously develop, a tool that can transform your relationships, your career, your health, your happiness, your entire life. So, let me ask you, are you ready to explore one of the most powerful forces in human experience? Are you ready to understand how you can use attitude to create the life you want, regardless of the circumstances you face? Good, Then let's begin this transformative conversation together. My dear friends, thank you so much for being here with open minds and willing hearts. Before we go deeper into understanding attitude, I want to start with a fundamental question. What exactly is attitude? If I ask 10 people to define attitude, I'll probably get 10 different answers. Some will say it's about being positive. Some will say it's your personality. Some will say it's how you behave. Some will say it's your mood. And while all of these touch on aspects of attitude, they're not quite complete. So let me share with you what I believe is the most comprehensive and useful way to understand attitude. Attitude is the lens through which you view life. It's the filter through which you interpret everything that happens to you. It's the framework you use to make sense of your experiences. It's the internal orientation you have toward yourself, toward others, toward situations, toward life itself. Let me explain this with a story. There was once a shoe company that sent 2 salespeople to a remote island to explore business opportunities. The first salesperson arrived, looked around, and immediately sent a message back to headquarters. Terrible news. No one here wears shoes. No market. Coming back immediately. The second salesperson arrived at the same island, looked around, and sent a completely different message. Fantastic news. No one here wears shoes yet. Huge potential market. Send inventory immediately. Same island. Same situation, same facts, but completely different interpretations. Why? Because they had different attitudes. The first salesperson had a negative, limiting attitude. He saw obstacles. He saw impossibility. He saw reasons why things wouldn't work. The second salesperson had a positive, expansive attitude. She saw opportunities. She saw possibility. She saw potential. This is what attitude does. It doesn't change the external reality, but it completely transforms your internal experience of that reality and therefore your response to it. Now, I also want to share something that many people don't understand. Attitude is not the same as positivity. This is a crucial distinction. Some people think having a good attitude means always being happy, always seeing the bright side, always pretending everything is wonderful even when it's not. But that's not attitude, that's denial, that's toxic positivity, that's fake. True attitude, healthy attitude, is about being realistic while remaining resourceful. It's about acknowledging difficulties while still looking for possibilities. It's about feeling your emotions while not being controlled by them. It's about seeing things as they are while still believing you can influence how things will be. Let me share a personal story. There was a time in my life when I faced a significant setback. A project I had worked on for years didn't succeed, and I was devastated. I felt like a failure. I questioned everything. Now, a fake positive attitude would have said, "Oh, it's fine. Everything happens for a reason. I'm just going to smile and pretend this doesn't hurt." But that's not what I did. Instead, I acknowledged the pain. I allowed myself to feel disappointed. I processed the loss. And then, once I had honored those emotions, I asked myself different questions. What can I learn from this? How can this experience make me better? What doors might this closed door be redirecting me toward? What skills did I develop through this process that I can use elsewhere? That's attitude. Not denying reality, but choosing how you orient yourself toward it. Not ignoring pain, but deciding what meaning you'll extract from it. Not pretending everything is fine, but trusting that you have the resources to navigate whatever isn't fine. I also want to talk about something else that's crucial to understanding attitude. Your attitude is not fixed. It's not something you're born with that you're stuck with forever. Yes, we all have natural temperaments. Some people are naturally more optimistic, some more pessimistic, some are naturally more resilient, some more sensitive, but attitude, unlike temperament, is a choice, it's a habit, it's a practice. It's something you can cultivate, develop, strengthen, and transform. Think of it like physical fitness. Some people are naturally more athletic. They're born with certain genetic advantages. But regardless of your natural ability, you can still get fit. You can still build strength. You can still develop endurance. It might require more effort for some than others, but it's possible for everyone. Attitude is the same. You might not be naturally positive or optimistic. You might have grown up in an environment that taught you negative patterns. You might have experienced traumas that shaped a defensive or pessimistic outlook. But none of that means you're stuck. None of that means you can't develop a powerful, positive, life-affirming attitude. It just means you need to be intentional about it. You need to practice. You need to work at it consciously. And the beautiful thing is, when you do work at it, when you do practice consciously choosing your attitude, it gets easier over time. It becomes more natural. It becomes part of who you are. Now let's talk about the real problem. Why do so many people struggle with attitude? Why do so many people go through life with attitudes that limit them, that create suffering, that prevent them from experiencing the joy and success they're capable of? The first major problem is unconsciousness. Most people are completely unconscious of their attitude. They don't even realize they have one. They think their reactions are just natural, automatic, the only possible response to situations. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they get angry. They think, of course I'm angry. Anyone would be angry. Someone criticizes them, they get defensive. They think, of course I'm defensive. I'm being attacked. Something goes wrong, they get stressed. They think, of course I'm stressed. Look at what happened. But here's the truth. Your reaction is not the only possible reaction. It's just the habitual reaction you've developed over time. And because you're unconscious of it, because you don't recognize it as a choice, you can't change it. You're trapped in automatic patterns that don't serve you. The second problem is victimhood mentality. Many people have adopted an attitude of victimhood. Life happens to them. They have no agency, no power, no ability to influence their experience. I'm stressed because my job is stressful. I'm angry because that person made me angry. I'm unhappy because my circumstances are difficult. I'm unsuccessful because I didn't get the opportunities others got. Do you see the pattern? In all of these statements, the person is completely passive. They are at the mercy of external forces. Their attitude is one of helplessness. And when you have an attitude of victimhood, you give away all your power. Because if external things control your internal state, then you're powerless to change that state unless the external things change. And that's a terrible position to be in. The third problem is negative conditioning. Many of us grew up in environments that modeled and reinforced negative attitudes. Maybe your parents were constantly complaining. Maybe your family focused on problems rather than solutions. Maybe your culture emphasized suffering and struggle rather than joy and possibility. Maybe your teachers criticized more than they encouraged. Maybe your friends bonded through gossip and negativity rather than inspiration and support. And over time, through repetition and reinforcement, these negative patterns became your default. They became the automatic lens through which you view life. You learned to look for what's wrong before seeing what's right. You learned to expect difficulty before considering ease. You learned to protect yourself through negativity rather than open yourself through positivity. The fourth problem is that negative attitudes are often socially rewarded. This is subtle but powerful. In many social contexts, negativity makes you seem smart, realistic, sophisticated. Complaining bonds people. Cynicism is confused with intelligence. Pessimism is mistaken for wisdom. If you're in a group and someone shares exciting news about a new opportunity, and you immediately point out all the risks and why it probably won't work, people might think you're clever and realistic. But if you respond with enthusiasm and encouragement, people might think you're naive and foolish. This social reinforcement makes it very difficult to maintain a positive attitude because there's a social cost. You might be seen as unrealistic, as not serious, as not understanding how the world really works. The fifth problem is the immediate gratification of negative attitudes. Negative attitudes often feel good in the moment. Getting angry gives you an immediate rush of self-righteous energy. Complaining creates connection with others who also want to complain. Blaming others protects your ego from having to examine your own role. Playing victim gets you sympathy and attention. These immediate payoffs make negative attitudes very seductive. Even though they create long-term suffering, they provide short-term relief or satisfaction. And humans are wired to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term benefit. Finally, there's the problem of lack of models. Many people have simply never seen what a truly positive, powerful life-affirming attitude looks like in action. They've never been around someone who consistently chooses empowerment over victimhood, possibility over limitation, gratitude over complaint, solution, focus over problem, focus. And if you've never seen it modeled, if you've never experienced it firsthand, it's very difficult to even imagine it's possible for yourself. So, what's the solution? How do we develop an attitude that serves us? How do we cultivate a lens that helps us see possibility, opportunity, and growth rather than limitation, threat, and stagnation? Let me share with you a framework that can transform your attitude. I call it the Attitude Framework, and each letter represents a key principle. The A stands for awareness. This is the foundation of everything. You cannot change what you're not aware of. So the first step in developing a powerful attitude is becoming conscious of your current attitude. Start paying attention to your automatic reactions. When something doesn't go your way, what's your first thought? When someone disagrees with you, what's your immediate response? When you face a challenge, what's your instinct? When you see someone else succeeding, what do you feel? Just notice. Without judgment, without trying to change anything yet, just become aware of your habitual attitudes, because awareness creates space. And in that space, choice becomes possible. The T stands for take responsibility. This is perhaps the most important shift you can make. Stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances and start seeing yourself as the author of your experience. Not the author of your circumstances. You can't always control what happens, but the author of your experience, how you interpret and respond to what happens. When something goes wrong, instead of immediately asking who's to blame, ask how am I going to respond to this? When you face a difficulty, instead of complaining, why is this happening to me? Ask what is this teaching me? This shift from external blame to internal agency is transformative. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. The first T stands for train your mind. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant grows. Whatever you water thrives. If you're constantly feeding your mind negative news, complaints, gossip, criticism, fear-based content, that's what will grow in your garden. But if you consciously choose what you expose yourself to, if you read inspiring books, Listen to uplifting content. Spend time with positive people. Focus on solutions rather than problems. You're training your mind toward a different attitude. This is why the ancient wisdom traditions emphasize the importance of satsang, which means keeping company with truth and positivity, because you become what you consistently expose yourself to. The I stands for interpret wisely. Remember, events are neutral. It's the meaning we assign to them that determines our experience. Something happens, and immediately your mind creates a story about what it means. I didn't get the job. That means I'm not good enough. My partner criticized me. That means they don't love me. This challenge appeared. That means I'm unlucky. But these interpretations are not facts. They're just stories you're telling yourself. And you can choose different stories. I didn't get the job. That means there's something better waiting for me. My partner criticized me. That means they care enough to be honest and help me grow. This challenge appeared. That means I'm ready for growth and I'm being given an opportunity to level up. Same event, different interpretation, completely different attitude. The second T stands for transform through gratitude. This is one of the most powerful attitude shifters available to us. Gratitude fundamentally changes your orientation toward life. When you're in a state of gratitude, you're focused on what you have rather than what you lack. You're appreciating what's working rather than obsessing over what's not. You're acknowledging abundance rather than dwelling in scarcity, and this shift in focus creates a positive attitude almost automatically. Make gratitude a daily practice, not just when things are going well, but especially when they're challenging, because there are always things to be grateful for if you look for them. The U stands for upgrade your language. The words you use shape your attitude. Listen to how you talk to yourself and others. I have to go to work versus I get to go to work. This is so hard versus this is challenging me to grow. I failed versus I learned what doesn't work. They made me angry versus I felt angry in response to their behavior. These might seem like small changes, but language is powerful. It shapes thought, and thought shapes attitude. Finally, the E stands for embrace the journey. Attitude is not something you perfect, and then you're done. It's a lifelong practice. There will be days when you nail it, and days when you struggle, days when you're incredibly positive, and days when you fall back into negativity. That's okay. That's human. That's part of the journey. What matters is that you keep practicing, that you keep catching yourself, that you keep choosing again and again attitudes that serve you over attitudes that limit you. Now, my dear friends, understanding this framework is valuable, but transformation comes through application. So I want to give you very specific, practical exercises you can start doing today to develop a powerful attitude that will change your life. First exercise, and this is foundational, I want you to start each morning with what I call the attitude alignment practice. Before you check your phone, before you start your day, take 5 minutes to consciously set your attitude. You can do this sitting on your bed, in the shower, or during your morning routine. Ask yourself 3 questions. What attitude do I want to bring to today? Maybe it's patience, maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's gratitude, maybe it's courage. Choose one quality that represents the attitude you want to embody. What challenges might I face today, and how do I want to respond to them? Visualize potential difficulties and see yourself responding with your chosen attitude rather than reacting automatically. What am I grateful for right now? Name 3 specific things. This primes your mind to notice abundance rather than lack. This 5-minute practice sets the tone for your entire day. It makes your attitude conscious and intentional rather than unconscious and reactive. Second exercise, implement what I call the pattern interrupt practice. This is for when you catch yourself in a negative attitude spiral. Maybe you're complaining, maybe you're blaming, maybe you're catastrophizing, maybe you're playing victim. The moment you notice it, and this requires the awareness we talked about, do something physical to interrupt the pattern. Stand up if you're sitting. Clap your hands 3 times. Take 5 deep breaths. Splash cold water on your face. Do 10 jumping jacks. The physical action interrupts the mental pattern. And then, once you've interrupted it, consciously choose a different attitude. Ask yourself, what's another way to look at this situation? What's one thing I can control right now? What's one small action I can take? This practice helps you break out of habitual negative attitudes in real time. Third exercise, start keeping what I call an attitude journal. This is different from a regular journal. Each evening, write down 3 specific situations from your day and analyze your attitude in each one. For each situation, write, what happened, just the facts. What was my automatic attitude or reaction? What was the impact of that attitude on me and others? What alternative attitude could I have chosen? How would that have changed the situation? This practice develops your awareness of how your attitude is operating in real life situations. It helps you see patterns. It helps you recognize where you're doing well and where you need to work. And over time, this reflection makes it easier to choose better attitudes in the moment because you've practiced analyzing and generating alternatives. Fourth, create what I call an attitude emergency kit. This is a collection of resources you can turn to when your attitude is tanking and you need a quick boost. In a note on your phone or in a physical notebook, collect things that shift your state. Maybe it's certain songs that lift your mood. Maybe it's quotes that inspire you. Maybe it's photos of people you love or places that bring you peace. Maybe it's a list of past wins and accomplishments to remind you of your capability. Maybe it's phone numbers of positive people you can call. Maybe it's a short video that makes you laugh. Collect these resources in advance when you're feeling good. Then, when your attitude is struggling, when you're spiraling into negativity, you have a toolkit ready. You can open it and choose something to shift your state. Fifth exercise, practice what I call the attitude observation exercise with others. Choose one day this week where your sole focus is observing attitudes in the people around you. Notice the person at the coffee shop who's cheerful despite the long line. Notice the colleague who complains about everything. Notice the friend who always finds the silver lining. Notice the family member who always plays victim. Don't judge, just observe. Notice the impact their attitudes have on themselves and on everyone around them. Notice which attitudes attract people and which repel them. Notice which attitudes lead to solutions and which lead to stagnation. This practice helps you see attitude in action in others, which makes it easier to recognize and adjust in yourself. Sixth, find an attitude accountability partner. This is someone you trust who also wants to work on developing a positive attitude. Share with them that you're consciously working on your attitude. Give them permission to lovingly point out when they see you falling into negative patterns, and you do the same for them. Check in with each other weekly. Share wins and challenges, celebrate growth, support each other when it's hard, because changing deep-rooted attitude patterns is difficult, and having support makes an enormous difference. Finally, implement the evening attitude review. This takes just 2 minutes before you go to sleep. Reflect on your day and ask yourself, when did my attitude serve me well today? Celebrate those moments. When did my attitude limit me today? What could I have done differently? What's one specific way I'll practice a better attitude tomorrow? This nightly review keeps your attitude development at the forefront of your awareness. It helps you learn from each day. It ensures you're constantly growing. My dear friends, as we come toward the end of our time together, I want to share with you one final story that I believe captures the essence of everything we've discussed about attitude. There was once a grandfather who was talking to his grandson. The grandson was going through a difficult time and was very angry at someone who had wronged him. The grandfather said, "Let me tell you a story. Inside of me there are two wolves constantly fighting. One is a bad wolf, full of anger, resentment, jealousy, greed, arrogance, self-pity, lies, and ego. The other is a good wolf, full of joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, truth, and compassion. This same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." The grandson thought about it for a moment and then asked, "Grandfather, which wolf wins?" The old man simply replied, "The one you feed." This is the ultimate truth about attitude. You have within you the capacity for both negative and positive attitudes. You have the capacity for victimhood and for empowerment. You have the capacity for complaint and for gratitude. You have the capacity for limitation and for possibility. Both are always there. The question is not which one exists, because both do. The question is, which one are you feeding? Which one are you giving your attention to? Which one are you strengthening through practice? And this is entirely within your control. You cannot control whether flights get delayed. You cannot control whether people treat you well. You cannot control whether opportunities come easily or with difficulty. You cannot control much of what happens in your external world, but you can always control which wolf you feed. You can always control your attitude, and that control, that choice, that power is the greatest freedom you possess. I want to be very honest with you about something. Developing a powerful, positive attitude is not always easy, especially if you've spent years or decades with negative patterns, especially if you're going through genuinely difficult circumstances, especially if you're surrounded by people with negative attitudes. There will be days when choosing a positive attitude feels impossible, days when the negative wolf is so loud and so strong that the positive wolf seems to have disappeared entirely. Days when you fall back into old patterns despite your best efforts. And on those days, I want you to remember something crucial. Progress is not linear. Growth is not smooth. You don't suddenly develop a perfect attitude and maintain it forever. You develop attitude through practice, through repetition, through choosing again and again, through falling and getting back up, through forgetting and remembering. And every single time you catch yourself in a negative attitude and consciously choose a different one, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. You're strengthening the positive wolf. You're becoming a different person. Even when it feels like you're failing, even when it feels like you're not making progress, even when it feels like you'll never change, every conscious choice matters. Every moment of awareness counts. Every time you feed the positive wolf, even if the negative wolf is howling, you're making progress. I also want to address something important. Some people worry that if they develop a positive attitude, they'll become unrealistic, that they'll ignore real problems, that they'll be naive and foolish, that they'll be taken advantage of. But that's not what a positive attitude is. A positive attitude doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means choosing how you orient toward reality. It doesn't mean pretending there are no problems. It means believing you have the capacity to face problems. It doesn't mean being naive. It means being hopeful without being foolish. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means maintaining your peace while also maintaining your boundaries. A truly positive attitude is realistic, grounded, and wise. It sees challenges clearly but believes in possibilities. It acknowledges difficulties but searches for solutions. It recognizes that not everything is in your control but focuses on what is. So please don't confuse positive attitude with fake positivity or toxic optimism. They're completely different things. What I'm inviting you to is something much deeper, much more authentic, much more powerful. I also want to tell you what happens when you consistently practice developing a powerful attitude. I've seen it in my own life and in the lives of thousands of people I've worked with. When you develop a strong attitude, your entire experience of life changes. Challenges that would have destroyed you before become opportunities for growth. Situations that would have stressed you become chances to practice patience. People who would have irritated you become teachers showing you where you need to work. Setbacks that would have discouraged you become redirections towards something better. And it's not that your circumstances change dramatically, although often they do, because your attitude influences your actions, and your actions influence your outcomes. But even before the circumstances change, your experience changes. You carry peace with you, you carry possibility with you, you carry resilience with you, you carry joy with you, and this internal state is far more valuable than any external circumstance, because circumstances are temporary and constantly changing. But your attitude, once developed, stays with you. It becomes part of who you are. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, for being willing to explore this fundamental aspect of human experience, for being open to the possibility that you have far more power over your life than you might have realized. Remember those two passengers at the airport, same delay, completely different experiences. The difference was attitude. Remember the two salespeople on the island. Same facts, completely different interpretations. The difference was attitude. Remember the two wolves inside you. Both exist, both are real. The difference is which one you feed. Go forward, my friends, with the knowledge that attitude is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose, something you cultivate, something you practice, something you embody. Go forward with the commitment to feed the positive wolf, even when it's hard, even when the negative wolf is loud, even when it would be easier to complain and blame and play victim. Go forward with awareness of your automatic patterns, with responsibility for your reactions, with intentionality about what you expose yourself to, with wisdom in how you interpret events, with gratitude as your foundation, with empowering language, and with acceptance that this is a lifelong journey, and as you do, as you consistently practice developing a powerful attitude, watch what happens. Watch how your relationships improve because you bring positivity rather than negativity. Watch how your work becomes more fulfilling because you focus on contribution rather than complaint. Watch how your resilience strengthens because you see challenges as growth opportunities. Watch how your peace deepens because you're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. Watch how your life transforms, not because your circumstances became perfect, but because your attitude became powerful. Thank you, and may you discover the incredible freedom that comes from choosing your attitude wisely.